This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, the time is 6:02. I call the regular scheduled meeting of the Select Board to order. 3 out of 4 members being present, quorum being determined. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any member of the public wishing to speak during citizens speak right now? Seeing none. Move on. First order of business is the appointment of Robin Walden, Conservation Commission, new appointment, 2-year term to expire June 30th, 2027.
I'd like to move appointment of Robin Walden to the Conservation Commission, a new appointment, 2-year term to expire June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Did you want to say something?
A complete packet, nice background. I think she'll be another good addition to the Concom. Thank you.
Town Administrator's report.
With the last 2 weeks being the holidays, there's not much public stuff, but I'll get into some of the capital and the budget stuff that's right on my resources. So,
Select Board members. Stephen, do you have anything?
A lot going on, but I think it comes up in other places.
Okay.
Right now, meetings are getting canceled and postponed left and right, so maybe a while before you have a formal update.
Okay. Ellen?
We met last night in person with the Conservation Commission on the Blue Wave project going on Pleasant Street. It was a well-attended and spirited discussion. Unfortunately, many of the people's concerns weren't really. The conservation is so narrow, and really what their place in this, and it kind of concerned more about the wetlands and the boundaries. People had considerable concerns about things like battery storage and threats to the water system, the aquifer, and things like that. And so they voted to delay, to do a peer review.
Continue the hearing.
To continue the hearing for a peer review. So that'll be moving on. What else do we have? So they are going forward with that peer review, but at the same time allowing the presentation so that everyone gets more information on what's going to be going forward with the project. It's a 40-acre project, 22 acres fenced, some 9,500 solar panels.
Whereabouts in town?
It's Pleasant Street, 4353 Pleasant Street. There was some concern about abutters not being contacted, and that was going to be George was going to be addressing that to see if we can contact the abutters that had not been.
Okay.
I think this, although it's a private project, it warrants a place on our website where information can be accumulated. A lot of I also attended, and I don't want to steal your glory. Very engaged public, but like all public's not clear which jurisdiction is being discussed.
Whether it's going towards zoning, whether the zoning board can address that more of their concerns.
And it will subsequently, but people, it would be great to have 1-page roadmap about we're here in the process, this would be required as well, and then maybe people have a hook to orient themselves. So we're not going to be talking about ownership of panels until ZBA, or just for example.
Okay.
That's going to go on months and months. The peer review means going in the field to freshly delineate wetlands. So,
Okay.
we'll see how much it snows.
Springing forward, yeah. So we look again.
Any other committees or?
That's it.
So, okay. Last night I attended the Hampshire Regional Central Office public session for select board members, finance committees, and school committee members. The key takeaways, at least from my point of view on that, the proposed budget for central office overall is a 6% increase, which is made up of $179,000 reduction in the forensic expenses. We were in year 2 of those one-time monies. And they completely cut out $30,000 for curricular materials. They later stated that they have not expended all of this year's money, so they're going to look to make a purchase for next year, but that's really just kicking the can. Benefits is a 34% increase of $58,000. They are anticipating, they are remaining with the trust for another year. They're anticipating a 15% hike on top of the 39% that we've already gotten. And then there's a 22% increase in district-wide technology services for $46,000. Overall, $111,000 reduction. The key important thing that I took away from that is, yeah, it's a 6% increase, but the work that the Director of People Services and the Director of Special Education is doing as it relates specifically to Norris, even though it's much bigger, they've now got the resources in place and the proper staff to seek full reimbursement for money that we spent. And an example as it relates to Norris, regarding the circuit breaker, right? In fiscal year 24, we didn't get reimbursed for anything. We was zero. Fiscal year 25, going through the receipts and documenting and putting it in, it's $54,687. Special ed increments, so that's the difference when we have a special ed child that's not within our district that comes in. We can charge incremental services if we can document it all. In 24, Norris was reimbursed $59,516. This year, it's $166,485. That first one wasn't circuit breaker, that was extraordinary relief. So that's anytime you go above 250% of what you've budgeted to spend on special ed, you can get reimbursed. So that was that first number. Circuit breaker itself, $52,000 in 24. In 25, we're going to get reimbursed $166,000. That $166,000 will become offsetting receipts for next year's budget. It has to be used within a rolling 18-month period. And then the last column here, which is not labeled or I'm not catching it quick enough, we got 112, and then 388,000 came in. So it's an increase in revenue to the town, or reimbursements, I should say, of 275,000. It's a 345% increase for adding one FTE to support those 2 department heads that we already have, of which Norris or Southampton pays 52 cents or 52% of. So for a $26,000 outlay, we got $275,000 in reimbursements back. So I think that's a positive for how they're going, and they have their steps in place going forward. So more to come on those pieces as it goes on. Next on the agenda is the fiscal year 27 capital plan update.
I want to include that into the budget update when the finance committee is here.
Okay, so we'll hold that for now.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an update? This is probably Chris. The 250th anniversary?
I
don't wait for Chris.
Like New Year's Eve bonfire.
Bonfire.
Yep. And awards were given to everyone who completed the scavenger hunt. There were 25 or so. And awards were given out with prizes for the best decorated houses, first, second, and third place, I guess.
Okay.
You can see pictures on the Facebook page.
Update on Zero College Highway.
So I'm meeting with Easthampton Media tomorrow about doing some video production once we do get the final plan from Dodson Flinker. I think when you see the plans, everyone's going to be pretty excited. I just want to make sure that people that are not able to attend the meeting, but get their information from like YouTube and things like that they can actually see it and pause it and kind of see the entire picture all at once, rather than what we've had at Norris School with the public input. I think it'll be a well-produced video will kind of help show the public exactly what we're doing. We're going to have aerial photography and interviews and a full presentation. So I think it's worth a little bit of time waiting to do that, and I think it'll be a good thing.
Great.
So
My understanding is this is going to be pleasant to watch and moreover informative, because what we have realized in the past is we didn't do a sufficient job of educating voters, and this will not only be a accessible resource, but it's evergreen or some permanent resource as we move forward over what may be many years.
Okay. Any other necessary business cannot wait for the next regular scheduled select board meeting on January 20th?
One thing I just wanted to mention was the Council on Aging has sent a letter to the select board about potentially using the space for the current select board meeting. One of the other things, I know that Chris will probably talk about that a little bit more, but one of the things I want to talk about Easthampton Media too is to make, no matter what happens with the Council on Aging, is to make that room more usable. Because right now, with all the wires, all the connectivity, it's almost impossible to move anything. So you have the podium right in the middle of the road, and you have that whole row of tables. So I'm going to talk to Easthampton Media about maybe doing some wireless stuff, making it more accessible no matter what, so it's more of a usable space.
Do you think you'll have that conversation within 2 weeks?
Tomorrow.
All right, so then I would suggest we accept the letter dated December 23rd from the Senior Center Building Committee update titled December 23rd, and we pencil it for discussion 2 weeks from now when we have an update from Easthampton Media.
So move.
Okay. All right.
And that's a follow-up because we're taking the first action on their request.
Right. Anything else that can't wait? Okay. We'll jump ahead one since I saw Vicky come in. Move alcohol license amendment, Pure Food. What do we have?
So, or you can make your own motion because you're vice chair. What do you want to do? I'll second it.
Stephen makes a motion to approve the amendment, which in essence is going from a limited license to a full liquor license, and the additional or the difference in the fee schedule has been paid to the town, and all of the requirements have been met. Correct? Correct. It's taken 3 years, but
2.5 years.
I do want to just,
is there a second on the motion?
A second.
Second for discussions. Stephen?
I just want to recognize Judy. Judy Sedonis, our assistant, who did a lot of work, and with Chris and everyone just to pull it through, but she did a lot of work to get this done, especially in the last couple of weeks. We were at the very end of the deadline, coordinating with the state and everything. So Judy, I just want to give her a recognition for that.
We recognized her as well.
Great.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Judy.
On motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. All right, and then we also have common vicular license renewal for Stop and Save.
I move that we approve the common victular license renewal for Stop and Save.
And a second.
Okay, there's motion made and seconded. I'm scanning the
Yeah, the
packet.
fee's been paid on this one.
Has everything been turned in? No objection? Okay, no further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Okay, second page, reading of the warrants.
There was one, I don't know if you want to talk about the canal bowling fees now or move it later.
Is it on the agenda?
It was in the packet.
It was in the pack, I think it was late.
Luke?
I'd move that we table it till next time. I'd like to have more background on some of the facts that started. That's where
So we'll accept the letter, we'll pen it 2 weeks out, and individual members that have specific questions can email, so we have those data points.
Great.
Reading of the warrants.
All right. Since we last met, or last reported, the following warrants have been pending approval. PD 26-20A, the amount is $295,449.96. W 26-21A, the amount is $1,741.61. Next is P 26-22, the amount is $353,955.82. Next, PD 26-22, the amount is $57,456.03. Followed by W 26-23, the amount is $104,881.29. P 26-24, the amount is $358,255.68. PD 26-24, the amount is $58,619.98. W 26-25, the amount is $1,681,226.05.
Thank you.
That's all.
All right. Old pending business, fiscal year audit 24.
Nothing to report. We're still working on it.
Okay. And East Street, East Section and Greenway Tip Project, any update?
Nothing on those.
Okay.
I am meeting with Ty and Bond next week or two just to get an update from the design perspective for the Greenway.
Okay. Is there anything we need to do with this?
No, that's just information for the town bowlings.
Gotcha. Okay, right. Calendar and announcements, special town meeting is January 10th, 2026 at Norris at 10 a.m.?
Yes.
10 a.m. And then select board meetings, January 20th, February 3rd, and 17th, 2026. Just got February 3rd, I can participate via Zoom.
Okay.
Is there anything else that we need to discuss? Otherwise, we can take a 12-minute recess until the 6:30 hearing. We'll be in recess for 12 minutes.
All right.
Want to kill the recording? Or no?
A lot of workers' comp claims.
We're gonna leave the recording going. So before anybody starts hollering. Easthampton Media can cut that out later. All right. Tell Chris, she's gotta watch the video to figure out how to run a quick meeting.
Scott, you said you had a chance to log in and see part of Concom, or did you see from the beginning?
Not from the beginning. I was at Hampshire Regional, and then
I
I
thought-
wanted to make sure everything was going okay, so I logged in for like probably half an hour.
That's known problem when you're trying to have a Zoom participant address the room.
Noise, feedback.
Oh, really?
Well, it's something I've seen you fix in the past after pushing a series of buttons. We need the series of buttons decoded.
Yeah, I'm gonna meet with Easthampton Media. The TV was actually broken. The microphone on the podium was broken. It wasn't turning on. So there was a lot of things going on.
We got a couple of things to sign.
Somebody mentioned that an interview had happened prior to, or just as
They were
a very...
asked if we wanted to speak.
I see, okay.
Mentioned that I wanted to
So I came late and left her.
Yeah, like, I didn't really feel like I done stuff. I didn't have the information yet. Seems like it was.
And you're an ex officio member.
Yes.
So,
And that seemed like that's been in the pipeline for quite some time.
special subject.
Right. Yeah, I was.
Farmers don't generally do anything.
Yeah, no.
No, I think you're right. And because I'm guns permits. Right, some of the questions about connecting to the grid are settled in the application, but that's not jurisdictional.
Did anyone see the Western Mass News piece on it?
I didn't search for it, I should have. Was it Channel 22?
Western Mass News. That's 40 still, I think, right?
Some subscription.
I don't think so. Maybe everything's pretty well broke down. Not on there. Oh yeah, here it is.
Southampton is the latest Western Mass community to discuss the battery energy storage system. Patterson joined the studio after celebrating
No, I couldn't see until I watched on the recording on Facebook. So Facebook, YouTube.
For tonight's meeting, I spoke with new Southampton residents.
Well, water, so I've been meetings up on a projector, which is half of the room, like from the paper map is also turned off, which is actually
Get a good picture of it.
no, if you zoom in, it's usually that's not an accurate title. I told you. SRO. So when I heard, I don't know if you're able to hear George in his presentation, the battery storage is only incidental to this specific field size, and every such field needs an inverter and battery storage. And this one, there are two different batteries. And the location of that is something that can be discussed. But it's nothing like what was proposed in Westhampton.
Oh, no.
That was like, what do you call it, tractor trailer transfer station full of batteries. Yeah, that's the view. That's the background on my Facebook.
We had told our team that
What do you mean? Yeah.
That's the company, he's vice president.
No way.
Your brother? 24 hours.
Did you get both of them? Just did you sign two? Yeah.
Only 3 years in the tax legislature governor. In probate court.
See, Stephen, when I chair, if you want to make a comment, you speak right up. Don't wait to get designated. Any discussion? Hearing none. Oh, you didn't? I would have stopped.
I think we made it,
But we, gotta be ready to go.
I'm not sure my pool skills are this good.
Oh!
we're assuming that this was coming with it too. Stone Scott?
Yeah.
Donuts, yeah. That's one more. How many did I just read?
Seven, right?
Yes.
What you just explained to me about special time meetings, I'm not going to be there anymore. We don't need a forum. We're just
We're in recess until 6:30, but the camera is recording.
No, you gotta tell me. He's standing over there, he knows.
That's all set, so it's just the one article.
John, your presentation about the regional school. There's some cash impact on this
It's
year,
okay.
but
I didn't
it's
know
all
just in case.
next year, next year's reps.
yeah.
And in general, some of the drafts, it's going to fall out at the bottom of the free
Just
cash.
earlier than anticipated.
So 111 will fall out, which means, in theory, 55% of that, we should see relief, but more than likely, it's going to get absorbed, because that was just central office. I'd be shocked if there's a decrease.
The question is, from Facebook, is that money that is effectively earmarked for schools and remains earmarked for schools? Or
That second
operations
piece that I was reading, the circuit breaker and extraordinary money.
Yeah.
That money, because it's recouped off of special education, has to stay within the special education spending stream.
As I would expect. And yet, but it's really different from processing have override to meet the schools needs.
But what that does mean is if more of that money is there to go there, we have to come up with less general fund money to fit in there, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of opposition, that way so many people were here.
And my sense is it's very hard to forecast until you get fall
I'm
and
not like well versed on the topic.
and budget
I'm like,
in the winter and spring.
what's going on in the Conservation Commission? And so
Do we have insights?
more impact than a vote. So.
Nobody moves out of town.
He said battery. And I was like, oh, okay,
But
that
we
makes sense.
learned,
It's a hot
yeah.
topic and everything.
Anyway, right? It's all measures.
Right. And then we're kind of stuck with it, you know?
In Massachusetts.
Our chair is going to make it.
She thought she was gonna make it by 6:30.
Because I was there for a while and that was the issue.
She doesn't want to zoom in, does she?
We don't stop.
Might have a roll.
Right.
Adult proof package. Don't make it there. Don't make me.
It's a beautiful street.
I know you have a way of getting it out.
What car are you driving, John?
I can't shake a work.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, John's here, but I never recognized that car.
During the spring, I'll take a break from working because my circle's right there. And also I'll walk the turn.
You know what I found interesting is Southampton has 48 kids at Smithville, almost 12.5% population.
Wow.
Fancy, but I like to take the kids on that once in a while. Every couple of weeks.
How many communities?
65.
65 different communities.
And I know there's one child that is on the school bus right now. One way.
Does it get involved?
There's a couple from Dalton that come down. They're in Dalton an hour.
Like it just started out. It's freezing rain, like it's heavy.
Well, that's really the culminating step for something. When we're all flooded.
She's going to zoom in.
We want to raise our rate.
take care of what
Okay.
But if we do that, I'm great. For a couple of hours, and that will really.
You know, on New Year's Eve, I stayed open until 1 a.m. Pretty impressive, huh? I tell people don't. This is not setting precedent. It's New Year's Eve. And I feel like I've raised the bar, and I'm not built for it though. Like the shots and everything at night, especially for these friendships, like I was like, my anxiety was like, I'm not built for it.
Yeah, it's too late for that.
But it's funny, I would feel like a piece, like 12:50, I guess, all off the bar. Like people could be in there till 1:15 technically, but I can't have any alcohol on the bar, so I was like, back in like,
Let's go.
yeah, so I was like, I don't care, it was snowing, not like you guys inside your cars, but 12:50, I grabbed everything.
Are you good?
413-529.
I'm just trying to, Chris needs to zoom in, right?
35.
Can she zoom up? Can you share with that?
Zoom is actually connected to that computer, but I can zoom in this way, but because my camera is connected to that computer. What I can do is, I can just transition. I can just switch over to 2 minutes. I can't.
Yeah, but it's got to be done.
People are maybe I think it's like I wouldn't be fine.
Audio would be to share. The audio would be to my laptop. No, the audio might, maybe. Let's try it. That's a good idea.
But I'm so happy with fun because they don't whatever. But I came home from my rounds and I gave my boyfriend, I was like, here's my half of the morning. Yeah, man, it was awesome. Because I always get days like
You're right, maybe
it will come.
If you can change,
Yeah, and I ran to the airport on Sunday, so it's hopefully like 2.5 weeks to go good. I feel like those questions together. I don't know, like you could see like the shifts, like not being in that distance, like it was funny. Like I was like, and he goes back to the training, so I think it'll be good for him to like go back to work, you know, how he feels. But it was really good. Like he had a good time. No arms, no fighting.
do you see us, Chris? Okay, you're on mute, Chris. Call the joint meeting back to order. Well, the select board back to order at 6:33. Refer to the finance committee to call to order.
Call the finance committee to order, 6:30.
Okay, both committees are present with quorums. We're joined virtually by our chair, Chris, who is remote today. For logistics purposes, I'll facilitate her chair. She can yell at me if I'm wrong. So, soon Scott gets straightened up here.
Chris, can you see that?
Yeah.
All right, hopefully that'll work. All right. So, have a FY27 budget update for everyone. A few things I would like to go over is the revenue picture going forward for FY27, what we know now. What are some of the cost drivers and expenditures we're going to be planning that are going to be coming up. Today I also met with a lot of the stakeholders to kind of talk about the initial internal capital plan, and I was able to get an okay to move forward to start presenting it publicly so I can start getting approval from FinCom and the select board and moving forward with that, and then going over the next steps of the FY27 budget. So just quick updates to our stabilization funds. We have $865,000 in our operating stabilization right now. In our capital stabilization, we have a little over $150,000. We were able to close out all those dozens of different accounts. So if you didn't spend it by October 1st, it's going back into it. So that's where a lot of that money is actually coming from. So Just a quick disclaimer, these numbers are just for discussion purposes. It's very early in the process, so everything's really just an estimate or back of the envelope calculation at this point. There's a lot of variables that need to be a little bit more concrete for any decisions to be made at this point. And I did meet with each department to discuss their FY27 budgets kind of informally and what their cost drivers might be, to kind of get at least a picture of where we can be in the next year. So the first part is talking about our revenue. So our revenue from the tax levy, which is what we're up against with Proposition 2.5, for FY27, it's probably going to be about $350,000 to $400,000. We're probably going to estimate less than $100,000 in new growth. Over the last couple of years, we've been over $200,000. That obviously is going to be in half, and it's going to probably be even less. New growth over the last couple of years has been kind of a saving grace for the town budget because it's been compounded year after year, but that is slowing down, as well as a lot of our other revenues. The other part is the overlay account. So our 5-year average for overlay, so an overlay is like abatements, non-payment of taxes, senior work off, veteran things, basically anything that that would allow people not to pay their taxes, or if you don't pay them, we put that together. That's called the overlay. The 5-year average has been 97,000. So our assessor is probably going to say for FY27, it's probably going to be over 150,000. So we're going to deduct that from whatever from our tax levy. So that's essentially, it's going to be money that we're not going to be collecting. So it's going up. So realistically, we might be able to depend on $300,000 to $400,000 in new revenue this year from the tax levy. Revenue from the state, so this is our cherry sheet estimates, and if you look at the last couple of years, this is Chapter 70 funds for the schools, our unrestricted government aid, things like that. The average has been about $77,000. If you look at the amounts, depending on what the state is going to do, I don't see it going more than a big increase of $50,000, maybe $75,000, depending if something happens. Hopefully, something on Beacon Hill does shake loose, and they send the towns more support. There was those 2 articles, those 2 reports from the MMA about the state significantly underfunding the cherry sheets, Chapter 70, Chapter 90. Essentially, we need more money from the state. So will it come this year? I don't know. The state's in a hiring freeze. They're offering buyouts of $10,000 and $20,000. I think that's an indicator of where things are going to be going. We have the federal funding, which impacts the state more than us. But until we actually see the money, I don't feel confident, going over what's already been historically put forward. Our revenue from other sources, which really doesn't impact our budget as much, but things like building permit, excise tax, ambulance fees, our investments, alcohol license, cannabis tax, meals tax, things like that. All those are probably going to be at best level funded for this year. We have a little bit of growth in like our meals tax and cannabis tax, but that's compared to what the overall budget is, it's not a lot of money. It's not going to solve anything. This part only makes up about 7% of our revenues when you look at everything. So when you do look at our revenue sources, we get almost 75% of our revenues from our real estate and personal property taxes. And when you look at that blue section, that again is restricted by Proposition 2.5. The other part of that is our state aid, which is about 19%. And again, we're at the whims of the state, whatever they decide to provide to the cities and towns. And then the other part, which I just mentioned, our meals tax, cannabis tax, ambulance, stuff like that. That's really a small part of it at 7%. So what does this mean? As I mentioned years ago, most cities and towns currently, we're not the only one, but we're in a structural deficit. When we have that much money that we get from our real estate taxes, and we're confined by Proposition 2.5, and all of our other expenses, health insurance is increasing by 10%, schools are increasing by X amount. We want to give people, even small wages increases, things like that. Adding a position, adding a person on health insurance, all that stuff is significantly more than what we can raise through our property taxes. So after the overlay and the levy, we might be looking at $350,000 this year. At best, maybe $100,000 in state aid from our cherry sheets. So right now at this point, I'd be level funding all of our revenue sources, and that's kind of like the best case scenario. So like I said before, maybe $400,000 or $500,000 in additional revenue. Just to give you an example of what our cost drivers are, if you look at our education budget, and education is obviously the biggest part of our budget, it's close to 70% when you add into our soft costs, our health insurance, our insurances, and all those things. A 2% Norris budget increase, and this is just their base budget, this is not including their offsets, that's going to be about $120,000. Same thing with Hampshire Regional, 2% is going to be $120,000. So you combine those together, a basic 2% increase is going to be $250,000. And you look at what our potential revenues are, I mean, that just alone. I'm not blaming education, but it's just an idea of what our cost drivers are. And when you look at the Norris Elementary questions, there's going to be a slight decrease in the central office costs this year. I think it's going to be $40,000 or $50,000. That's a good thing. That's going to impact Norris, but also the Hampshire Regional. But there's a lot of other costs that are going to be going up. One of the concerns is the FY26 offsets that Norris used. There's about 2 years ago was a little over $900,000. Last year was about $750,000. Question is how much of those offsets are going to continue to be available. If it's half, then that's going to be a 4% decrease just on the offsets alone, and a lot of that's out of the control of the school committee in Norris. So this is just a 2% increase on the base budget, and it's not accounting for any reductions in offsets or other revenues that they use. And Norris also has their collective bargaining agreements this year that are out and outstanding. So that's going to have to be settled. So we can't really plan on any percentage budget right now because it's wide open at this point. Same thing with Hampshire Regional. Dr. Perone, they've done an amazing job riding the ship. I think if you were able to go to the watch or go to the presentation yesterday, I think you'd be very impressed. I think there's a lot more confidence under their leadership. They're working hard. They're doing a lot of things to kind of move forward with that financially. But again, the numbers are the numbers, and they have to do the best what they can with what they have. You're going to see a decrease in central office costs, but there are going to be some expenses with Hampshire Regional. For example, as I mentioned before, we have that FY26 health insurance. That's going to be still $220,000, and that's got to come from somewhere. There's going to be, I'm just, again, back of the envelope, there's going to be a 15% increase. So if a 20% increase is $200,000, a 15% increase is going to be $150,000. Again, I go back to what our revenue is going to be. That alone,
that's it.
Is just for health insurance to pay for is our revenue. And then
they're not tracking with the town employees' health benefits, which you've led with our support to get out of the term side confused and get into the statewide program, which is more financially advantageous for every party, the employee, the town, our fiscal responsibility.
I have a slide for that.
We ought to have a veto on Hampshire Regional behavior like that.
Well,
if we're 61% vote budget.
5 communities vote. If 2 communities vote it down, yeah, it's 2, not 3. If 2 communities vote down the budget, it goes back. That's the veto.
So it's a full nuclear option. Veto the budget and let them sort it. You wouldn't necessarily be able to rectify the insurance issue.
No.
Yeah, okay, I'll let it go.
So health insurance is going to be our single largest cost driver across everything, Norris, the town, Hampshire Regional.
Have the town employees, including Norris, completed the open enrollment period for the GIC? Are we able to calculate out now?
Not yet, so that won't be until April.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, transitioning to the GIC, this should provide some relief and stability. The GIC is going to be setting their rates in late February. We're going to be having our open enrollment for the GIC, and I think it's going to be in April 1st, around that, and it's going to be for 30 days.
Just to flog this dead horse to death, we shifted from regional schools in general, to health insurance for town employees.
Which includes Norris.
Which includes Norris, but, right.
Yep. I still have the Hampshire Regional. Next slide. So there's still a lot of unknowns. We don't know what the rate increase is going to be for the GIC. I mean, I imagine it's going to be less than what the Hampshire Group Insurance Trust is going to be. We don't know where employee mitigation is going to go. The employee migration and employee enrollment, we don't know if the numbers are going to go up or down. I mean, I'm assuming the migration will do as much as they can to get people into the plans that best meets their needs, and a lot of that will be the lower cost WellPoint and Health New England. It's going to be taking a lot of education, and then employee enrollment. I think that we might see a slight decline in enrollment switching to GIC. People might say, well, I'm going to go with my spouses or another option. We won't have concrete numbers until May, until after enrollment. Ultimately, if everything goes our way, we might be able to level fund our original FY26 budget if everything works out to the best. If we have fewer people enrolling, if we are able to do things like an opt-out program that would help encourage people leaving, if we have a huge migration to H&E or WellPoint.
And by level funded, that includes the bargaining of the FSA?
No, that would be a separate
extra, right?
Mm-hmm. So, it's everything goes well. I mean, it could be possible. I don't want to get everyone's,
And at the state level, has there been any traction on the bill to allow municipalities that are exiting the trust to deficit spend for 5 years on the run out, or is that still in process, or is it dead?
I think that's stagnant.
Okay.
I haven't gotten an update yet. I know it's still out there, so.
Hey, Scott.
Go right ahead.
One of the issues historically has been the weight loss drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Hampshire, the insurance trust was stopping that. How about the state plan?
The state is restricting it. They have a new program with Vita Health, I believe, where if you meet certain qualifications, you have to enroll in this special third-party program. They would provide the weight loss drugs, but there's certain restrictions around that.
Okay.
So it's a much more managed program.
Yeah, so we were told those big increases were in part, or maybe in large part, related to those usage of those drugs. So if they're not going to be used, wouldn't you expect the costs to go down?
You would expect.
You would think so.
They were discontinued in October 1st.
But even
for the group. Yeah.
Let's say that was 90% of the problem, which they have said, but they haven't provided any documentation of calculations.
Yeah.
Even if it was, they still wiped out 33 million or 30 million in reserves. That would build back up.
No, it was smart. I think it was smart to leave the trust. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yeah. But if those costs aren't there going forward, you would think there'd be a pretty significant change.
Yes.
And even if not, you would think there would be change because people have lost weight and they're healthier. So I see like the data for people losing weight that they're not on all these other medicines anymore. So we should see some type of positive.
So even if you spend $10,000 on a weight loss drug, but you prevent one heart attack, which is like a 6-figure, or a hip replacement, or diabetes, or something, it should long-term.
Over the long term.
Right. So short-term it might be like that, but long-term, as long as you manage it, make sure people that need it are actually using it, it should be a benefit, not a negative.
And I think the cost of those drugs is going down significantly too.
16,000%.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Medicare just did Medicare.
We got a few now.
They won't cover it anymore.
I don't
They're
know.
afraid that they do because of that yesterday.
So there is a potential liability and runoff cost. That's something that we won't know. I won't go into it too detailed because, as I mentioned to the select board, I think there are some legal issues surrounding that that I've been talking to council with, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. Additionally, we do have a budget for mitigation funds, so we agreed to the unions. It's about $90,000, so we're budgeting about 35 this year, 35 next year, and whatever the remainder is going to be will go towards the FSAs and the other stuff. Yeah, that's state mandated. And then I did talk to the unions about an opt-out program. There hasn't been much traction, and hopefully I can get that in the next couple months. But an opt-out program similar to like what the GIC offers and what a lot of other towns, it would say if you've been on the town's insurance for a couple of years and you have another option either through a spouse or maybe someone, 2 individual plans instead of a family plan, we will pay you X amount of dollars, $1,000, $2,000, $500, whatever it is, to leave our plan for the year. So there could be a pretty significant savings if we get 2 or 3 families to take that, and it costs us $2,000, and we save $25,000 on the fees because they can now take that $2,000 and apply it to their spouse's deductible. Then that could be a pretty decent amount of money. But again, we won't know. I have to talk to the unions about it, and we would have to again put that part of the budget, so it should balance out. But the question is, how long? You don't want to just make it open to everybody. So you have to actually demonstrate that you've been on the insurance for a while, maybe not just a new employee, but also what do we do years 2 and 4, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Do we keep paying them?
And the other thing would be to make sure that annually they certify that they have coverage somewhere else.
Yeah. So do we keep them, do we do it in perpetuity, or do we have, is it just a 1-year thing and then we risk everyone coming back on, flooding back on in year 2?
Well, I would say in municipal government, nothing should run forever.
Right. So that could be an option. That could be cost savings. There's a lot of other town side cost drivers. Our highway garage heating system, which is almost being installed, that's going to be about $40,000 in debt. Technology is going to be increasing $10,000 to $20,000. Salary adjustments, we do have one union contract out right now. That union contract could go to binding arbitration. So we do need to be able to put at least some money aside for any type of salary adjustments. Because we are in collective bargaining, won't go into too much detail. PFAS and landfill monitoring, that's going to be increasing. Non-union increases for the town, so I'm probably going to be proposing a 1.5% increase. It's not that much with step increases. Most other towns are at the 2 or 3%. I did an informal poll around, so we're still kind of even below that. But that's going to, if we go forward with that, that's going to be $40,000. Utilities, again, are rising, and legal expenses from the bridge to Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust and other things. We're probably going to have to budget a little bit more money in our legal expense budget. So that's just things just right off the bat that are going to be on the town side cost drivers. Again, I go back to that $300,000 to $400,000, and we probably have just that alone without increases to health insurance for active or retirees. I mean, that alone is $150,000. So our education, obviously central office and Norris School. Hampshire, those are reducing slightly. Norris and Hampshire Regional, that's going to be another issue. And then we have our town costs like transportation and vocational tuition. So we pay for the transportation costs out of the town side budget, and then our vocational tuition we pay out of the town side budget now. So we have 46 students in Smith Vocational right now, and we have 1 student in Westfield. It's about $22,000 per student currently. To attend those that we pay the tuition for. So we don't really know the numbers until after the budget cycle, until the summertime where the lotteries have been done and they have actual numbers. So could it go up 5 students? Maybe, and that's $100,000.
Yeah.
Could it go down? Yes.
The number of town kids at Smith Voc makes up just under 12.5% of the population at Smith, which is an interesting number.
Do we know the marginal cost for a student at Hampshire Regional High School?
Not offhand, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Bigger,
it's about $17,000 for Norris.
It's less than the vocational.
It's less.
17, 18.
Yeah. On the transportation side, I don't know that. Well, I do know. I know it's not it's not a select board issue. We pay the bill, but the school committee negotiates that contract as a bigger piece. And I wonder if maybe we should ask the committee to look at just to re-verify that we need as many buses in the Norris Loop and the Southampton Loop. Because I know, because we have buses, there are multiple houses that get picked up that are 2 houses from Norris. They get picked up there and brought to Norris. You know, the buses drive by anyways, I get it. But if one bus out of the, I think there's 14 that run, you know, what's the cost? 300,000 divided by 14. We can figure out what the cost of a bus is.
I'm actually a little bit more concerned about the specialized transportation.
Well, that actually, there's a separate line item for that.
When is the contract up? Because some things to consider if you guys have input is what we did is we went before the city council and asked for a 5-year because we were able to get more competition. We found that more companies were interested in our bus bid by, you know, we can statutorily only do a 3-year without approval. So we got 5-year and we did a 5-year bus bid. We saved huge money. So
regional negotiates on behalf of all the towns. So they can do the 5, and the current contract is a 3-year with 2 1-year extensions, and I think we're in the 4th year. I think.
That's correct.
Yeah.
You know, food for thought is to do a 5-year with a you know, multi-year extension on, you know, based on vendor performance and appropriations. But we found that companies would come from Florida for a bigger contract, you know, like the smaller year contracts. We weren't stimulating the competition, and we have the same 2 bus vendors.
Yeah, but true, but the minibus situation or the special ed, you know, van pool that runs it, you know, that's $200 per day per student, regardless of how many students fit in that minibus. So, and I honestly don't know off the top of my head how many van pools we have related to Norris, right? Because that would be on the town side budget versus Hampshire Regional. It's a proportionate piece out. And again, you know, positive news last night is they're utilizing the minivans that Hampshire Regional already has that we already pay for to limit the van pool. So I mean, they are being proactive.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've even negotiated to see if certain parents would, you know, we can compensate the parents to move them, or even working with Westhampton or Goshen or other towns that can do it as well. So I know that it's definitely on the radar. Yeah. Whether or not, you know, it's successful, that's another thing, because, you know, ultimately some of it does reside in the parents' discretion. So, especially with the specialized. So with Hampshire Regional, the health insurance, so there is a health insurance equity issue. You know, with Southampton transitioning to the GIC, Hampshire Regional is staying in the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust. So there's that discrepancy there. Southampton, we pay 70/30, Hampshire Regional pays 75/25. They didn't mitigate any of the impacts of a 55% increase to health insurance. So they don't have to join the GIC, but I did stress that something like this does have to happen, that they have to take some kind of action. You can't have a cost driver of 55% of your largest line item and not do anything. I mean, I think it was a missed opportunity at this point to do something. And I just, personally, I don't think it's fair that now, you know, myself included, you know, North School, all the employees, we did something to mitigate the cost. But essentially our high school, which is what other cities and towns, you know, the regional serves as our high school, they have a different, not only do they pay less, but they're also going to be in the group insurance trust, so they don't have to transition or research insurances or any of that stuff. So, I mean, my recommendation, I do think, you know, a proposed budget from the Hampshire Regional, you know, they have to match the savings for health insurance, at least by Southampton in some manner. Just because you didn't join the GIC, there's still options. They need to sit down with the table with their unions and get something done. So, I mean, I do think that there should be some pressure applied to them on that regard. The other thing is the DLS recommended agreement. We're meeting with the DLS on Thursday to go over the memo that they produced. But one of the recommendations is to have an actual agreement with central office on what services they provide. You know, Dr. Prone, you know, they've done a terrific job, but researching and everything that there's actually no detailed agreement on what the services that central office provide to Norris School, Hampshire Regional, or the town. We have an agreement, setting everything up, but there's nothing that says that they're going to provide accounting services or payroll services, or they're responsible for this. So if we're spending $1.5 million, we should have an intergovernmental agreement that actually spells out what they provide for everybody. One of the things that my own personal concerns, and I've expressed this to Vito and Don, is that if you have 4 different elementary schools and a high school and central office, they don't have a human resources personnel, so you have hundreds of employees, and there's no one on staff that has an HR background. So contract interpretations, employee disputes, professional development, MCAD complaints, all that stuff is just a huge liability. And I think if we do have an agreement, they have a benefits manager that doesn't have any HR background right now. So I think they need to have a position that if something happens, I think it's a ticking time bomb. And again, what do we actually receive for payments each year? Southampton, we have the largest budget out of all the towns in Hampshire Regional. We have the most employees, we have the most students, we contribute the most to Hampshire Regional. And I think that the agreement has to be kind of tilted more towards our organization and our operations than anything else. So I've talked about incompatibility with VADAR and other accounting systems, and they've been very good in trying to do something, but I think it needs to kind of spell out that, they need to be on board with what we're doing so that our accounting and our financial and our payroll and our benefits doesn't suffer for other towns. So I can read you the memo, but this is just what the memo said from the DLS. That there's no specific language in the relationship between central office and the individual elementary schools or our communities, and that we should do something similar to an intermunicipal agreement. So the next thing is our upcoming liabilities for this year. And this goes, against free cash as well. So we're trying to get free cash certified for this year. It might be $300,000 to $500,000. So we have our liabilities. We have that $150,000 payment to central office for our second year. We have the CARES Act of $130,000 that's going to be counted against our free cash. We have our potential Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust liabilities that could be spread out over 5 years, but we still need to start budgeting for that, regardless if pending legislative approval and regardless of how the legal issues kind of unfold. We still need to make sure we have that. We have the mitigation funding, the $30,000. The Hampshire Regional Health Insurance cost for FY26, that's still the big question mark. And as I mentioned before, that alone is going to be nearly $400,000. So that leads to the...
Was there no free cash update?
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
So you went through that one real fast.
So looking at the revenues, and I did do, so it's going to be easier and I can circulate this. So one of my mistakes last year was having individual spreadsheets. So now everything is one spreadsheet that there's 100 tabs, but it's going to be, everything is now interconnected. You don't have to produce everything. So that was my mistake last year. Just roughly our basic revenues, as I mentioned, going through everything, level funding or reducing everything, and assuming that there would be a 2% increase. Again, this is just numbers. It doesn't mean anything final. It's just to for discussion purposes, just to see what the numbers look like. So a 2% increase for North and a 2% increase for Hampshire Regional, as well as all the basic level services that we did with the town after our discussions with the different department heads, getting some estimates on what our IT tech is going to be, what our Maya insurance is going to be, all those things, and assuming that in our health insurance comes in just a little bit more than what we budgeted for. We're going to be looking at a deficit of $500,000.
Last year, when we went through this exercise, we assumed kind of minimal increases at the high school. Mm-hmm. And it was way off. I mean, do we risk doing the same thing again if we just budget like a 2% increase at the high school and then?
Well, I think the height,
Yeah, so
go ahead.
So I have an answer for that, so I'm going to skip ahead. So I have been meeting with the school committee. They've invited me into their executive sessions for negotiations.
You're talking Norris, the question
Norris.
is the high school.
Oh, high
The
school.
question-
Well, it's kind of both. But
Oh, because regional should be out mid-February, at least the indicator of what that increase is going to be. And then we should plug that number in because it'll be adjusted over time. Norris is usually later on, and that's the harder one.
So last year and previous years, it's always been, well, the school hasn't gotten us our numbers yet. We're waiting for the school. And then the school's been saying, well, the town hasn't given us guidelines yet. So what are we going to do? So I've been trying to do it a little bit differently and getting everyone together earlier to start talking about, what the financial picture is going to be on the town side, what the financial picture is going to be on the school side, are there going to be offsets or are there not going to be offsets? And I'll get into it a little bit later, but I think that we need to form a budget task force working group with the schools, with the town, with even a few citizens, and I'll get into the details like that. But we need to start kind of talking now on what the options are going to be and how things are going to look budget-wise, rather than the town waiting for the school just to give us a number and then reacting to that number. We need to be a little bit more proactive and work with the school.
But even right now, you have Norris at 2 and Hampshire Regional at 2, and we're in the hole by $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there needs to be, either we assume an override's going to pass and fine, or we assume the override's not going to pass and we need to figure out where to find $500,000 there. And I almost think it needs to be proportionate by percentage of the budget, not just go to Norris because that's the biggest piece.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that every department has to feel something. There's no unicorns out there that are untouchable.
I can tell you if we get to that point, every department would feel something.
Yeah,
Of course.
and the last round that wasn't the case.
And Norris felt it last
Yeah.
time. So does this contemplate the requirements to return the level funding to Norris? John, can you remind me of that requirement?
No, so per the, now, I will say this, I'm not involved in the day-to-day union negotiations, so if anything, whatever I'm gonna say was prior to us entering negotiations, and Margaret and Kim are handling that, not me. Last year with the cuts, the union contract gives a 1-year waiting period before they can file arbitration against us for not. Now, the word, I'm not the lawyer, but the wording is that the school committee needs to put forward a budget that restores the cuts. And if the committee fails to do that, then that's a trigger. If the committee puts it forward and the select board through finance cuts it, it's silent. What does that mean? But it says the management, the committee shall put that forward. Which would mean there's at least one, I would think there's one version coming from the North School Committee that anticipates all those cuts being restored.
Right, which isn't a 2% increase we're looking at.
Correct.
11%, give or take.
Right.
But there's really no recourse. At the end of the day, there's not, I mean, the school committee can put forward the budget, it could still be voted down.
Oh, correct,
Yeah.
correct. And at that point, the union can still take us to court. And then if a judge orders it, now, see,
For what?
the good thing, because if they go and they get a ruling from the labor judge, that's the one time, now you have a court order, the town has to raise above, and then the town has to figure out how to pay that. So you have a court order to
Force
pay
the
it.
town to pay the bill.
I don't think it'll go that far, but I mean, that would be the course of action. You have a judgment against you now.
Yeah.
So DOR would come in and say, you gotta fund this, figure out how you're gonna pay for it.
So I do want to just take a little offshoot, talk about the capital plan proposal. So I've been working on this for a little while now. I did meet with the stakeholders, a lot of the capital stakeholders today, including the school department, Vito, Don, Eliza, highway superintendent, fire, police chief, library as well, just to kind of get a little bit of buy-in before I presented anything public. Now, this is all still conceptual, it's still a draft, so there's, my big disclaimer, it's theoreticals for discussion purposes only. there has to be a lot of flexibility. I don't have a crystal ball. If you would ask me how much a 2x4 cost 5 years ago versus now, I mean, it tripled in price. So, I mean, when you're trying to look at 5 and 10 years down the road, who would have thought car prices were what they would be? But ultimately, there's no perfect solution. We do have a capital funding problem, but we're going to have to really do compromise and adjustments to get anything done at this point. So just a little bit of history. We do have a history of underfunding or rejecting capital projects. The public safety complex, the dump truck from a few years ago. Mostly, all of our projects have been either debt exclusions or they've been funded from our capital stabilization fund. Our capital stabilization fund is based on 35% of free cash. And if you look at the amount of free cash that we historically have had, at a high point, maybe $500,000 or $600,000, 35% just doesn't, as you'll see, just doesn't really cover anything. Let me just actually, sorry. This is actually one from FY11. So FY11, our capital needs were 2.2 million over 8.5 years. As you'll see today, it's now $7.5 million right now. So a lot of these things may have been funded, but they're reoccurring. Dump trucks and loaders, heating systems, sidewalks for Norris School. It's an ongoing thing.
So this list that you sent out, that you just shared with us, this is the one that each department head has signed off saying this is their accurate?
No, I'll go over that. So that's just a conceptual idea right now of what it can be. So
okay.
So the current capital process, as I said, it's overseen by the Capital Improvement Committee, 35% of free cash, and then everything else has been essentially debt exclusions. We had the ambulance stabilization fund, but that was stagnant for years, and realistically, the amount of money that we even could put into that would never get us to a point where we could buy an ambulance. Ambulances are just increasing too much. I mean, it was $150,000 if you look at the FY21, FY11. Now they're up over $600,000. So even if we put enough money, we would never get to a point where we could actually buy an ambulance outright in cash. Our funding history from free cash just gives you an idea of what the balances were on July 1st of each year. And looking at our current capital needs. So as I send out, I send out inventory sheets to all the departments, which I can show you what they filled out. So for example, the fire department is probably the best one. Mm-hmm. Just gives you an example so we can have an idea. And these would all be public, but the best way that we can do it. So each capital request has at least an inventory on it. Go back to this here. So everyone was able to get everything back in October, totaling everything out. The fire department over 10 years has about $2.25 million. North School 1.4 million. Police department 600,000. Highway department 3 million. Library 30,000, and our heating system just in this building. So miscellaneous, let's just say miscellaneous at 100,000.
Scott, is there some of our long-term debt is I don't know if there's the chart of, do we have when some of our long-term borrowing is starting to fall off, kind of like the
all of our borrowing is debt exclusions except for one dump truck. So
that's good.
It'll help the taxpayers, so they'll be paying less. Larrabee, this is last year for Larrabee, which is this renovation, but it doesn't free up any money in our budget for these. And then we also have to add the heating system, so for that.
I would love someone to put together that schedule, because Scott's point is important. It doesn't advance budgeting, but it does help us address the taxpayers.
Correct, and if we could get a vote where they would allow us to borrow, we could borrow, you know what I'm saying? And if you show that it's not going to affect that much, especially because when the exclusion drops off, then that there's no real impact on the taxpayers.
I do think that exists. I think I've seen that.
In a graphical format that can be
Not necessarily graphical, but I
It's something we could maybe talk with the treasurer about, because that's how we did it in my community. And, it shows our debt ceiling, and there's different points. There might be, 5 years from now, we might be up real high, but on the horizon, 3 years, there might be a big low dip, and that's when the time that we want to utilize the borrowing to get the most.
I mean, we can't do that. We just don't have any money in our budget to borrow. And that's kind of what I wanted to go about, is that we need new funding sources. Our only funding for capital is voter approved debt exclusions or through the capital operational. So
what would be a new funding source that you can think of?
Well, I would looking at how Belchertown did it, and a lot of other communities, is actually using an override to put a budget item that we can consistently have year after year plan on and actually borrow against. So we don't have that line item like you mentioned. That's essentially what this would be. But we're so far in the hole with capital projects right now that we can't just find a couple $100,000 year after year to be able to do that. So the other system of debt exclusions, I'll go over the individual ones, but we'd have 100 debt exclusion votes. I mean, it would be so much right now.
Well, debt exclusion is good when the useful life of the item is short, like a car. Like a police car, right? I mean, you're going to run that car for 20 years, so you don't want it permanently in there. You're going to constantly have to keep doing that. So that's like a one-time expense that people can understand. But doing an override for staffing to add money, it's
but to a ban versus a bond, if we knew that in 5 years we were going to drop and we could ban versus bonding for, a lower, then that would help the town's financial.
So the idea is, I would looking at all the numbers, and I've talked to all the different stakeholders. I've talked to Norris, I've talked to Vito, I've talked to Randall and the chiefs, and they're all kind of on board with this. Looking for a $350,000 override that we can use for the capital expenses. And that's going to allow us to do a couple different things. It's actually similar to how Belchertown just passed it. They actually did a $500,000 override as part of their override for capital expenses. But this is going to allow us to have actual planning and a consistent funding source so that we can borrow for things. So if you look at the sheet, bring that up. So for example, if you look at the spreadsheet, our ambulance. So the concern is always, well, if you're going to pass an override, they're just going to use it for other things.
Right, so how do you avoid that?
One, there's going to be a separate budget specifically for this. So every year, all the town employees at town meeting will be able to see where that $350,000 is going to be going. So that's going to be a budget item. It's going to be water remediation, Norris School. It's going to be ambulance. It's going to be this. The other thing is we're going to be spending that money. So if and when it's approved, the next day I'm going to ask the police, the fire chief to put in the order for an ambulance, and it's going to be 2 years before we actually get it. But we're going to be on the hook for $124,000. So we're going to have those debt payments. So we're going to have to spend the money. So it's going to have to be dedicated to that. In the first couple of years, there's a lot of smaller items we're going to be able to get off the list. But ultimately, it's going to be for those projects, those things that allow us to borrow, like the ambulances and loaders and dump trucks and things like that over a period of time. Again, this is all just conceptual. But I think it could work, and that $350,000 amount, at least for the first couple of years, can make a pretty significant impact on what we need for our capital expenditures. I don't want to go too low, and I don't want to go too high. And I could do $750,000 easily, but we need to be reasonable with how we approach the voters on this, and it'll take care of a lot of our different projects. After again, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen after year 5. When we start talking about a pumper truck and things like that, it's going to be pretty expensive.
So would the mechanism go however the wording of the question needs to be, to approve a $350,000 override that permanently increases the tax base, but that the housing of that $350,000 is something similar to the current capital stabilization fund? So it restricts it, it leaves it, you can't go out there and hire 2 new staff members.
Right.
With the money. And in order to get the money out of there back into the general fund, it requires a 3/4 override.
Yeah, we could definitely do it that way and just put it right as into the capital stabilization fund. Skipping ahead, I would probably think about doing it under the FinCom, and I've talked about it before, having FinCom. I'll just skip ahead to the slide. having FinCom.
It's gotta be palatable, because it's not gonna pass. There's no,
If you
all
don't, if
this
you don't put
work.
restrictions on it.
Correct.
This may be splitting hairs, but I don't know if we can actually word the override in a perpetual restriction. I think it's only earmarked for 1 year, but I think we would have to have a separate, I don't know whether it's a modification of the bylaws, something that puts in a permanent restriction separate from the override.
Or is it a question every year?
Well, ultimately, the voters control the budget. If we're not putting that money towards capital, they can vote down the budget.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my recommendation I mentioned before is combining the capital and the FinCom. There's a lot of positives to that. First of all, it's going to be more efficient. The other thing is the FinCom, you see the entire budget, so you know how things work within everything. You also have budget presentations, so you can combine the capital with that. So when the highway department comes in, you can look at their capital budget as well in their capital request, and essentially the budget potentially could be under FinCom to decide, FinCom/capital committee to decide what the year's expenditures would be, or we could do it the other way and do it as the operational stabilization fund. So just going back to the Belchertown. So if you look at they did a really good job, especially with the public perception, with the marketing and letting the public know where the money's coming from, and how it impacts everything. And they were successful with their override. And part of that again was where did it go?
We're a little late in the game here, but you paused the sharing of your screen, so Chris has probably been looking at the same.
Sorry, Chris.
There you go. And she can't unmute herself. You have to do that. There you go.
So like Belchertown, for example, but I think we need a very clear explanation to the voters, explaining this, where the money's going to go, what it's going to be used for, and how it's going to be spent with that $350,000 part of it. I mean, the other option is, we can do debt exclusions all the time, but it's just no way to do a capital plan. It would be almost impossible to go forward with that. So what this would cover, vehicles and equipment, basic building maintenance, capital fund through free cash would still exist, and to supplement this. So as I saw, with the escalations, we might want to save up for a few different things. So that's what this would cover. What it won't cover is it's just not enough money. It won't cover new buildings. It won't cover a public safety complex. I mean, that alone, the debt for the public safety complex would be well over $1 million. It's not going to cover major renovations or infrastructure projects like the bridge. It's not going to cover Hampshire Regionals. Mm-hmm. That's going to have to be a separate thing.
Just want to call that out.
Yep. Hampshire Regional, they have their own capital improvement and emergency. So this is going to be, the small things are okay, and the big things would have to be debt exclusion. So this would cover that area kind of in between. The ambulances, the loaders, the Norris improvements, things like that. The other thing I did want to mention is, for example, the Norris. So when you look at your sheet, a lot of the capital would be driven by Norris, and I do think that we need to start looking at what do we do at Norris School over the next 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. Dan, our energy manager, is putting together a comprehensive building assessment, trying to get an engineer in there to actually look at the building. He's also looking for some green energy grants. I think that's going to be a good starting point, but we can start looking at other funding sources that's more available to the schools. And I mentioned the MSBA in the past.
We got to throw our name in the ring now, though. MSBA takes years, so we should already have our name in the ring if we're looking at MSBA.
Yep, and
you got to have that plan.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if you look at it, $100,000 for carpet, $90,000 for painting, things like that, where a lot of that's cosmetic, but we need to be able to look at that. And before we start painting, doing carpet, what if there's going to be a major renovation, we need to start figuring that. Lexington's $660 million high school, and the state's paying 30% of it.
Yeah.
And that's at
the other issue is you come up with bandwidth. Who's going to start looking at it? I mean, I'll sit here and argue all day that Norris is a department of this town, so it's up to the town hall to do the work. Especially since it's not spelled out in Services Agreement of 1966.
So a lot of it will be like, short-term funding, especially with Norris, the water remediation, the sidewalks, things that will preserve the building. And I think we need to start looking at other sources for the generator, for the HVAC, for the big things. There's still going to be a lot of green energy stuff for those types of things, but I think we just need to get a comprehensive plan. And then there's other things that probably shouldn't be part of the capital plan. Like I would recommend their operational budget, like the laptops and the tech stuff. They should really have a line item for Norris. I mean, technology is part of the schools now. It's just like books and other things. And I think that they
Is
should
it a
be
line item for the other departments?
We have a capital improvement, or for ours we do.
Well, again, they are us.
Yeah. Well, ours is $3,000.
It doesn't matter, Scott. They are a department. They just happen to be the largest department within the town, but they are a department of the town. So I'd be opposed to holding them to a higher standard than we do our other departments.
Well, I think they should have an expense line item for technology. It shouldn't be funded through capital.
Yeah, it should be in their operating.
But our current capital policy allows that to happen. So they're only operating within the confines of the bylaws that the citizens have put forward.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, sure. It's because they let everything build up where they have to spend $20,000 on laptops. So they should be taking a few $1,000s and just circulating out the laptops every year. So if you look at
I would say the town does the same thing. Reference point number 1, the fire station. Reference point number 2, the town hall, the old town hall. We just let it go, kick the can as far as we can. It's just they're of such a size bigger than here. Like I don't see the pumper anywhere, and that's $750,000. It's not on the draft.
Yeah, it's your FY36 fire engine, I believe.
Well, an engine is not a pumper.
I'll double check with the police chief. I think that was the pumper.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, yes, their deferred maintenance sticks out more because of their size, but every department head is doing deferred. I mean, Randall, where's his sweeper? We spend more money on contractual services than would just to buy that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely part of this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the money that would be a combination of short-term borrowing and the money that he already spends hiring out to fund the new sweeper.
And I know I'm preaching to the wind here, but, I am an advocate for the schools, and it just seems like Norris is the punching bag every time a cut needs to come up. And yes, they're the biggest line item, I get it, but, they continue to take the hits for the past couple of years, and other departments have increased in their revenue, in their expenses. That's all.
Yeah.
Stephen, I'm sorry.
Confess I should know the answer to this as a recently elected water commissioner. Our water department is an enterprise account. They frequently go out to borrow to fund their infrastructure investments. Does their borrowing, say their credit rating, is it independent of the town? Or at some point, are they actually part of the capital program as well?
They wouldn't be part of the capital program because they're fee supported.
Their bonding is
a whole new tab on you.
Yeah, their bonding is their credit rating is based on their rates that they collect. However, the backstop should they fail is the taxpayers of this town. Versus if the town was to fail, it goes to the state.
In an audit or an appendix, but it's okay if you make an assignment to the department to get some data to you. We're working on it. It's not going to be quick.
One would argue as an enterprise fund, though, it's easier for them to go out and borrow.
Because
Assuming their
and I
rates are
think your
adequate.
model, what you're talking about with the override, it's a similar model to that because we're showing that we're bringing in this money, so that's how we're able. We're creating a revenue like the enterprise fund, just for layman's terms. So that's your kind of ideology. I feel like that.
And we're recovering indirect costs from them for all the time that the treasurer spends securing the borrowing.
Yeah. But to just continue on your bandwidth and to steal Reggie's thunder, same thing applies to the landfill. The taxpayer should not be subsidizing the landfill. It's an independent enterprise fund.
Mm-hmm.
smaller than the water department, but
Right, well, we wouldn't want to hear that the water department's doing something of great risk that's gonna fail, and that the taxpayers have to pony up the money.
yeah.
They're not covering everything by fees right now.
Yeah, and it's a department of 2 licensed professionals and an assistant.
Because an example, isn't
Really fragile.
the hit that we took to free cash, wasn't a piece of that $30,000 related to the water department not timely seeking reimbursement for their project? And now the taxpayers have to cover that?
It was the $60,000 from 4 or 5 years ago that the town paid for that is never reimbursed in the.
For the water? Right.
But we're even though. After that transaction, the town did not pay the 60,000, it just evened things out from the prior year.
No, the DOR is penalizing us on the, right, yeah. So DOR garnished they zinged us 60 grand.
From our state aid, that's what they do.
Or free cash.
Yeah.
Free cash, yeah.
So that's the capital. So there's still a lot of stuff.
Can you unmute Chris? I think she has something she wants to say.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, she's just waving hello.
I should be able to.
Oh, she has to leave, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she had to leave.
Park Cemetery,
unzoom.
thank you.
Yeah, I haven't talked to the Park Cemetery yet, but I did get Roger. Robert, you could give me your. We're going to sit down. So this is just our internal departments that we were talking about right now.
So when we need to hire Tyne Bond to do the next stage of engineering on the Greenway, we have a state trails grant to fund the majority of that, but we still have to do some local match and/or bill for reimbursement. I'm not sure how that goes.
Mm-hmm. So it's from our CPC. Is that setting aside the town's contribution level?
Nice.
So it doesn't come from our general fund. So I think it's like 15 or 20% offhand. So when we get a bill from Tyne Bond, we take 80% from the state and we get reimbursed for that, and then we take the 20% from the CPC.
Because that was authorized at town meeting. Yeah. Okay. Good. So we pay 10%, we don't pay 100, whatever it was.
Right.
We don't pay 100%. Okay.
So that's the capital part of it. So I don't know if there's any reactions or ideas. Again, this is all just, it's conceptual at this point. I'm not making decisions. It's just an idea of looking at all the different needs that we need. The street sweeper, the loader, the sidewalk repairs at Norris, the water mitigation, the police cruisers, all that stuff, and just seeing, how could we potentially fund it, and how could we spread it out and borrow against a set amount of money. So I think it's possible. Again, the decision, that's what goes where and when, that's going to be a moving target. Randall's salt shed could last 20 years. You put on the capital, it could fold over tomorrow. So
we have proper insurance for that, don't we?
I guess. So, not terrorist. So if something happened, a terrorist.
Terrorist policy is like $30 a year. What do you mean we don't have that?
Hey, we're penny pinching.
Are we still insuring that diesel tank?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the inspection fees that go along with it?
Yeah, because we can't afford to dig it up.
We got to cut our losses on that. That is an unquantified liability. And we ought to drive over the town line, or the city line, to buy diesel when we need to.
Well, are you crossing the county line?
Then we'll go to Holyoke.
That's still a different county.
We have to
You can go to
Easthampton.
Easthampton. You can find a diesel shop in Easthampton.
No, it's got to come from everywhere.
So, what about, there's never enough time, because this is more of an 18, 24 month project, right? What I'm about to propose. Again, consolidations. Partnering with Mr. Water Commissioner, outsourcing our water department to Easthampton's jurisdiction, paying them to handle it. Mm-hmm. Is that equal to or less than what the current budget is, right? If it's savings, then the ratepayers are saving money. Our highway department, should we be looking to either, one of the hill towns, probably not, or again, I go with Easthampton. Should we be looking to consolidate those two highway departments together? Our highway with their DPW? the police departments.
I can tell you that, I mean, just from a wage perspective, they generally pay more. So if we're going to take their employees and hire them, it's similar to what we saw with the fire department inspections. We had that grant where we worked with Easthampton. Easthampton was able to do our fire inspections for a year. So they asked us if we wanted to renew them. The person that does inspections themselves earns significantly more than our fire chief.
Yeah.
So that person would be doing the inspection. So the amount of money that they gave us that they would continue when this wasn't feasible because they're a bigger city, they pay more.
Not for that one thing, but it's just, I don't know the number because it's not in front of me, but since you went with fire, if we're spending $2 million in general receipts to maintain a paid on-call fire department with ambulance service, could we, for 1.9 million, get the same services from Easthampton? Now, my guess is Easthampton is going to say sure, but you got to put a new facility in. But let's just assume we can wave the wand, and our good Congressman Richie Neal will give us the money for that. Just say that happened, right?
After the midterms.
Maybe we should look at it. I mean, dispatching, yes, it's had its quirks and its angst, but it seems to be working. Our 911 calls are being answered. You know, we don't have police officers doing dispatching anymore. So, and maybe it does cost a little bit more money over time, but I guess my thought is without doing the legwork to either validate it or invalidate it, how can we go to the citizens and say, which I think this is a good idea if you can figure out how to restrict it, $350,000 for capital every year, this is how we're going to do it, but you know, we've put so many restrictions in here that legally it can't be spent on library books, right? I mean, it picked something other than people. Okay, but at the same time, it sounds like we're looking for a $500,000 override. Just a very loose preliminary, 1% of the numbers are accurate right now. The voters aren't going to go for this. If we say, we've looked at everything else, we've ruled, yes, you said, why don't we consolidate our water departments? Why? Because of the argument of, you know, up until they hired the third person, which I'm assuming the third person's still there. But prior to the third person coming on, that second person was working 361 days a year. I mean,
I think, regionalization is a two-way street. And Westfield and Easthampton would regionalize out of the goodness of their hearts. For Southampton, they're going to want to make money.
Let's get it in writing. Let's get it in writing so that we can go to John Q. Public and say this is why it doesn't work for us. Do.
Well, I mean, just again, back of the envelope, if it takes 11 police officers to have 24/7 coverage in Southampton, and their salaries are 20% more than Southampton, there's no feasible way that.
But we only need 11 police officers in Southampton for 24/7 coverage because we need 2 units available. But could we have one car like Northampton and Florence used to do in the old days? One Northampton cruiser was always in Florence, never allowed to leave the jurisdiction of Florence. But when they needed that second car, it came out of the city, it came out of Northampton. Could we, and I'm not speaking for any of the police chiefs or anybody there, I'm just saying, would it be plausible to have one dedicated car that never left the boundaries of Southampton, but when that car needed help, Easthampton, who has maybe 3 or 4 cars out at a time, would say, yeah, we understand, and we're going to go in and back up that officer. So now, in theory, we're doing it with 5.5 or 6 officers and having 24/7 coverage, knowing that your backup is right there.
I would still be concerned about response time. That's the other thing, you know, unless there's actually a facility.
Scott, I hear you, but this is all talk. It's like we need a study.
Yeah,
that shows it all so that we can go to the public, and it's not just
a study is a huge time constraint, and we just can't do the time right now to do an actual study and regionalize.
Well, that's why I was saying 18 to 24 month project.
It's a little longer than that. Trust me, between Zero College, the budget,
well,
the
don't we agree Zero College is dead?
No, it's just getting started. So I mean, yeah, it's if we had the staff to do it, absolutely, and we had funding.
We owned it,
so
and we can make good use of it.
Well, the benefit of owning the property is those taxes now just got dispersed to every other taxpayer in the town. So,
well, I mean, is there any other cities and towns that have regionalized highway and police outside of very small towns? And we can copy that example. That might be a good starting point. We are
small.
We are small, but I mean, we're talking, you know, 700. What was the? I think it was Otis that their police department resigned overnight. and they had to rely on state police. So, I mean,
Goshen
regionalization
has
has,
volunteer. I'm from Goshen. We had
I
volunteer.
mean, there's certain things that absolutely does make sense. Like, Dalton regionalizing their building department, health department, and special services. Those are things that are uniform across multiple things. They're doing mass general law, health
What about
inspection.
the Board of Health? I mean, start with the small stuff, the Board of Health.
Of course, we always look at
Permits,
that.
planning, building commissioner.
Right, so those things are things. When you talk about services like highway and police and fire, that's a whole different.
Well, you
That's a
have
whole
big
different
ticket
thing.
items.
So, I mean, I don't, unless there was, we just don't have the resources to blaze the trail on that.
No, but Pioneer Valley PVPC could be a project for them. And
And I think maybe to your point, John, maybe not at the, okay, police and fire, maybe that's two, but health, building, all of those things, like even bigger towns out, on the other side of Western Mass, they have regional health services with one regional department.
right, and then they set
and
it
shared
up. They
services.
set up where the offices within the town hall are manned every Wednesday, right? And those other days you got to go to the other abutting community for it. But again, it's
veterans
understanding
building
that.
health as well. Libraries technically regionalized. When you think about it, with the CW Mars and all the regional libraries, those is essentially regionalized.
Yeah.
So that's not uncommon. We can look at those types of things. Whereas the bigger
Meet
things,
in the
that's a whole
middle.
different thing.
Well, I guess along
They even tried regionalizing a town administrator in Lee Lennox and
Well, prior to you, that's what we tried to do in West Hampton.
so. I mean, unfortunately, that didn't work out too well. So, I mean, stuff has been tried in the past for regionalization, but.
It's kind of,
Okay, well,
no, go ahead.
No, you first.
So along the same theme, it's not a whole department, it's not looking at regionalizing the police department, but like ambulance services. I think we should be considering, or at least finding out if there are like commercial enterprises that would be willing to take that over. So.
What we do there, so we have a company.
$600,000 ambulance, if that's something that can be privatized, it's something to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
You can give them
most
the old
towns,
building, the old.
I mean, there's a lot of big cities that have privatized ambulance, and there's a lot of smaller towns that have privatized ambulance, and some do it themselves. So,
We just did a study. We did a feasibility study because we are privatized and we're a bigger city. So we were looking at the opposite end of the spectrum of, giving our EMT and firefighters better jobs, bringing in revenue. So it's, and I'm happy to share that study. So
and then
made a lot of money.
and then if you do it internally, what level of service do you probably just do basic EMT, or do you do the higher level? And then that costs more to do the higher level, and you have to make sure that you're bringing the money to offset that.
Yes, but again, you got to be careful what you ask for, and I think this was part of your time, is the citizens did vote an override for 2 full-time paramedics around the clock. How many full-time paramedics do we have today? I believe that vote was 3 years ago.
We have the chief and one other.
He's not a paramedic. He has an EMT cert. Well, actually, Fasoli might be paramedic now. No, Fasoli has an EMT certification. Paramedic, we funded 2 paramedics, and we only have 1. No, I'm just saying, so when you go in, the citizen said, yes, I want to pay this extra money because this is the coverage I want. And 3 years later, we haven't gotten to that coverage level.
I mean, and the insurance alone for 2 full-time employees is going to be $50,000.
Okay, I go to the other side of the argument. The taxpayers have been paying for 2 full-time people, and we're only giving 1. So we're not giving a tax credit back because we failed to fill that spot. We repurposed that money within the budget.
Yeah, I mean, the ambulance, it does lose money at this point, so the town does fund the ambulance.
That's just
It is not self-sustaining.
No, it's not.
So,
I would argue it never was.
no, there would have to be significant changes for it to be self.
But it is a necessity. I mean, we don't have a county ambulance, right? So,
But with like a Cataldo right next door, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe it should be looked at because there are a few other privatized ambulance companies close enough proximity that it might be advantageous to set up shop. We're talking a small town versus a $40,000 big city, and we're right next door to them.
Back to the operating challenge and how to share the pain. Everything is driven by related personnel costs, benefits. Do I understand that your entire workforce plan is based on a step increase plus a COLA?
1.5% increase across the board for the thing, and then whoever's not at the top level will get an increase, a step increase. It's just like with our highway, our police, and our teachers, they have step increases.
So the people that are maxed out would nonetheless get 1.5. If you're on the step scale still, you get the step and not, or do you get both?
Yeah, so the entire scale moves, and then you would do a step. That's similar to what we do with all our unions.
Thank you for reminding me. It's a little complicated, but
But can we offer one and not the other? If they're getting a step increase, which is a significant raise, do we have to do the 1.5%?
Well, I would do it everything. It's $40,000.
You're also talking about the non-union
Oh.
employees, which is less than 20 people. Yeah. That's the 20%, not the 80% that's driving the bottom line.
I mean, teachers will be getting an increase, highway will be getting a step increase, our police department.
I would assume all unions are going to
do
do something.
do as we do. You know,
Yeah.
Yes, our biggest expense is our elementary school and the regional school system, but town government has taken the hit year after year after year, and I'm not eager to run and turn back the clock on the progress we've made on wages and equitable compensation. But if we have any leverage over the schools, we're making the cuts, you need to make the cuts. Same way you framed up the health insurance issue. You may stay with the Hampshire County debacle, but you gotta find the savings nonetheless.
So there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of challenges coming up in the next year, especially with the budget and looking at what other communities do. I mean, I would propose doing a budget task force working group, because this is going to require a lot of in-depth looking at things.
Would this be all public meetings?
It could be. It could be working. It's
Well, so like what, two out of 4 select board members haven't agreed to quorum?
2 out of 5.
Well, there's only 4 of us currently, though.
You're right. Yeah, maybe one. Good point. So I mean, that's a whole different thing. But I think it's the concept is just to get a group together that meets on a weekly or bi-weekly meeting. You know, myself and the school superintendent, just to start saying, hey, you know, we can pause these positions. You know, our offsets are going to come in above or below, or you know, I think it's just keeping that going.
I would suggest you divide the school committee, one from the local school committee and one from the regional. There's one of the Southampton elected people at Hampshire Regional that is not on the local school committee.
Okay.
Right, so you can, because if you just do the 2 school committee members here, then you're only getting 2 folks at Norris, right? But like Carol Barkham's the only one coming to my mind right now, but I can see all their faces.
So this is just I just want to go over an example of what South Hadley has done. I think they've done it successfully, and I think it's a really good model. Can we duplicate it? Probably not, because they have more resources and more volunteers. But I think it's looking at what they've actually done with their task force. You know, they're very active. They do a lot of public input. They're very good with explaining, you know, what will happen with and without an override, what will happen with the capital stuff, where the money can be going through. They do a lot of external stuff, you know, things like this. Why are we in this situation, where our revenues are, where our expenses are looking at. So I mean, I think that, you know, putting this together and showing the public would be a pretty.
Well, the more you can educate, the more you can communicate, the more likely you are to win some folks over. It's when the question just goes up and they've never really seen anything on it, they're just by default going to vote in a negative fashion.
Right. So they've done, you know, a really good job.
I would say do a Zoom option to make it, you know, to get people to join, because if you're meeting in person, it's going to be a hard ask for, especially, it's the people that are already involved are the ones that are going to be.
Right. And the town's small too, so the number of people serving in voluntary board positions is very probably less than 0.5% of the town. So if you're at,
Right.
half of that group has day jobs.
Yeah. So that's,
So you're looking for feedback on your budget committee task force
well, I mean, just
to
in
discuss
general.
regionalization across all sections?
Let's just go back to county, let's just go back to county government. Right?
Hey, I'm open to think about anything.
And at some point in industry, in insurance, banking, consolidation is the only way to stay ahead of the increased costs.
Yeah.
And it's happening all over the place. So it's not a bad idea to at least consider it.
Are you proposing a hostile takeover of Easthampton?
Well, I do think there are neighboring communities outside of Easthampton that I'm not going to name that are in similar situations that have department heads that are closer to retirement than our department heads, where those current department heads have strong relationships together, that it might be the time to look at us regionalizing, but possibly some of the, I say the hill towns, but it has to be concurrent though. You can't, as I found out when I looked at this, you can't jump over a community.
Yeah.
They have to be abutting in some way, or you can create a ladder system to get there. But again, I don't think it hurts to have the communications with the stakeholders and see if there's an appetite to move somewhere, because if our DPW superintendent came to us and said, Community X, Highway Superintendent Y is going to retire, and I really think this is a good opportunity, and I'm in full support of this. As a select board member, I'm more willing to go in there and have the conversation if my department head is already in favor of it. Because the flip side of that is, what happens when our department heads are relatively young across the board. But they're going to hit retirement age at some point, and or they're going to be wheeled away to another community. Then what do? Do we go out and look for somebody else? Generally, if you're gonna not hire from within, you're gonna pay more money to get somebody to come in. So pay me now, pay me later. We could at least then say, the consolidation doesn't work, and here's why. Or now's an opportunity to, because so-and-so just gave their 6-month notice of retirement.
And every single community is looking for treasurers, collectors.
Oh, yeah.
Every department head job across the state has vacancies, so
Right.
it's a
The treasurer collector job within a tribe, Montgomery, Westhampton, Southampton, if the three of those could get together, their existing funds that they're using, you could have a 4 or 5 person department to handle everything. And you probably even save some money.
Well, I mean, what happens when regionalization goes bad?
You deal with it then. You have great town administrators that keep an eye on this stuff.
I mean,
that happen to have a law degree and an HR background.
And unfortunately, I mean, we have some recent experience with regionalization not going as we.
Are you back on the trust?
No.
Because that's a regionalization that went south.
No, what did we collectively spend on a forensic audit that didn't even come out with best practices? DLS had to go on and give us best practices. It would be nice if we could unwind, but
We have to do something.
yeah, I'm not advocating that.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Well, we should responsibly exercise our full share of the vote, full share of the influence.
I don't disagree, but
I don't know what that means.
Forcing an issue, well, to me, that sounds like forcing Hampshire Regional to take a drastic cut or hold a 2% line. Okay, that might work this year, but next year that solution is not going to be on the table. That's a Band-Aid. We constantly put Band-Aids on. We're at the point where we need to fix the dam here.
But you got to have all the puzzle pieces pulled together.
Yes.
And that, yes, it wouldn't be as.
I mean, realistically, if you look what happened in Hadley with an override, I think they went too high and they got voted down. You look at Belchertown, I think it's, they put forward something and it was approved. I think it's a matter of there is the political aspect of it. You know, you don't want to go too much and then you get nothing. You don't want to go too low and have to do constant overrides year after year. So it's finding that area where the voters will approve something. It'll help, you know, remedy temporarily that structural deficit, and it'll get by the voters. And you know, what could that number be? You know, we definitely know it's not like Hadley's where it's $2.8 million. So
It would be a blend of things, right? The capital budget line, the foreseeable increases from.
yeah, it would be just like that: school, municipality, capital improvement.
And we're okay creating this kind of educational material because it's not taking a position, it's simply clarifying the.
This actually comes from Belchertown's communication manager, so you know we can do stuff like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if there's a
Strictly
committee
related to the budget, to the numbers, and factual only, not, this is why you should vote yes because of this. It's just.
you can advocate as a select board member. You can advocate for something.
Right.
It's, you can't use town resources.
Well, that's what
the
he's saying,
problem.
building this report needs to be neutral, it's just the facts.
But so many committees got jammed up and they wouldn't even take the first step. Who else could communicate better than the committee that worked with?
So committees are allowed to advocate for something they vote for. Absolutely. It's just you can't use the town resources. That's the threshold.
Right.
Anything else from the select board side?
Thank you. Thank you all.
Any, who's your chair? Vice.
Becky.
Good talkative.
Does the fight is what I have
Taking
anytime?
it all in. It's my job.
It was a really good brief.
Silent but deadly, Becky, you know?
A lot of work went into that, you can tell.
Are you able to just send us that just so we have the foundation start understanding that it's preliminary? Okay.
Yeah, I can send that all out.
I think from the select board's point of view, I think your vision of a task force with some tweaking, I think we'd be in support of that.
We need it.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
Anything transparency, educating the public, and just, there's a gap in understanding it all, and a lot's changed. So I think anything that's gonna help put out there what people are trying to do and solutions, not just.
How do you propose to get the citizens selected?
Let's do a call out. I mean, I would love to have a couple regular citizens that haven't been involved in town government come on, not only give their opinion, but understand the process a little bit more.
That's the secondary benefit, right?
I think that's important. I think, you know, public outreach, if you look at what, if you look at what South Hadley,
Oh, yeah, well known.
yeah, I mean, they did,
Just Mike Sullivan, former Mayor Hoyle, created all that.
I mean, they did community surveys.
Yeah.
And this is their information. Budget cut overview. And you know, they've been working at this for years. We don't have years. So will it be at this level? No. But
over time,
It could be in 3 years, though. You know, our first year might not be so robust, but I think it'll grow.
But they present at town meeting. I said, looking at the moderator back there.
Well, I was thinking town meeting would be a great recruitment place to throw it out there. I don't know if the moderator can speak about the task force, because the people that show up to town meeting are at least involved.
Well, we didn't pass the bylaw, right?
Saturday.
For the we did pass it.
You did.
Yes, the moderator actually appoints the members of that committee now.
Oh, it has to be approved by the AG.
Oh, well, our attorney general is busy with some other things going besides our bylaws. So,
I think that's a good point. I do think, at least for this budget cycle, that's a little too late. We really need, as challenging as the numbers are, I think educating the voters is even just a larger task. There is just a lot of opposition to overrides and to increases to the town revenue. So we have to hit the ground running.
yeah.
But the more stuff we put on the website, the more educational materials, the more transparent the doors are here, it starts breaking that gap. Or filling it in.
Especially the transparency. I think there's definitely a faction that's looking to sniff out why, why is this sneaking in a special meeting once a
I mean, we also have to make it
That's the
palatable.
way-
I mean, this is what Belchertown did for they did a video. Things like this will.
In this video, we'll look at how to calculate the tax rate in Belchertown for FY26 with and without the Prop 2.5. The first thing you need to know is what your home's assessed value is. You can find this by looking at your most recent tax bill or visiting our website. For this example, we'll use an assessed property value of $266,500. Now you need to calculate the taxable value. To do this, divide your assessed value
We all know how
by
to do it.
1,000.
So, yeah. I'm just giving you.
Enough of that.
That's like that's an example.
John's point earlier
you know.
about the EMT, they voted for it 3 years ago, we still haven't delivered. So we have to fix those types of things before we build
Yeah.
trust in this community. We have to address where we've fallen short, correct it, and move forward. In my
Yeah,
opinion.
and I would say, just to be clear, so I don't get nasty text messages once this video goes live, it's not for a lack of Chief Fasoli is trying to fill the role. It's finding another qualified person to come in that, in all honesty, wants to put themselves in that working condition for 40 hours a week.
But then we need to report on it monthly and say, hey, we're still
Yeah,
looking, we
yeah.
haven't. So at least the answers are there.
Oh, absolutely.
That,
Yeah, I mean,
the
realistically,
communication.
with that position, we're not going to be able to fund it. We're looking at a $500,000 deficit. We can't hire a new person and terminate them because we can't afford it because we're still supplementing the fire department. It's just wasn't
So
enough
that's
money.
where I have a problem. That's where I have a problem because 3 years ago we got an override to do it. So in theory, now I get it. I
Wasn't
know
enough. It wasn't enough money.
it was enough to fill those two spots. We chose to repurpose that money in year two,
I mean, soft costs.
which statutorily you can do. I get it, but from the voter's point of view, you asked me, I approved it, and I gave you the money for it, and you chose, not you, Scott, but the body chose to shift that money in year 2 or year 3 somewhere else. And now you're coming to me again saying I need more money? You don't, the body, again, I don't want to make this personal, the body doesn't know what it's doing. And if I'm an outsider and I'm a taxpayer and I'm a business person, I'm like, I wouldn't tolerate this in my day-to-day job. So I'm not gonna, no, I'm not, I already, there's a big mistrust of municipal government anyways. Not just Southampton, just across the board. So it's hard. And yes, everybody sitting here understands what happened and where we got to and how we got slammed with back-to-back 20% increases, but the average taxpayer, if you asked them last year who our current health insurance provider was, I don't think people are gonna figure out it's on the second floor in Northampton at the old courthouse, who doesn't have an executive director anymore, but hired 2 outside consultants to come in and do a study, but yet there's nobody in charge.
Well, this summer, so after the override failed, there were people that were surprised at the cuts that were happening at Norris. They had no idea, what the failed override would actually result in. I think there was some ad hoc attempts to educate what the potential costs were, but what the shortfall was going to result in. But still, I think there's a big gap there.
Yeah.
And I think as we approach this budget, one of the things that we need to really convey is, what are the hits and how will it be felt if, the additional funding isn't met.
Yeah.
And put out there the potential, what does that mean if the override ever passes? What are the services that are what's possible,
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, the time is 8:05, 8:03.
What does our town administrator need of us between now and then?
Well, I mean, we still got to do the regular budget, regardless of budget task force. So I wanted to just send out some schedules to get the departments in here, start doing their budget presentations and meetings and things like that. So this
Are
is
they
more.
ready? Are they ready to give presentations?
For on the town side, it's going to be very, very much repetitive from last year. Just explain the increases, where they are, what's needed.
So maybe in the interest of time, would it be plausible for them to submit their budgets with a narrative, and then based on the narratives, we select who to call in? Not necessarily, because again, if it's flat same over year, then do we need to spend 30 minutes talking with the building commissioner about permits.
Well, I think it's also an education on what the departments do and for the public, because they're going to be recorded and posted on the website, so they can actually go over the line items. And they may not be large line items, but at least the public knows what the money is going to be spending it on. And there might be questions regarding that. I think it's important. And it might be a 10-minute. You might be able to do 15 in a night.
It never is. It ends up being 5 nights of 3-hour sessions of the same thing that was said last year. But I hear you.
We'll give them a time limit. I know.
I mean, it's also it's a way for the departments actually to go before the select board too and talk about.
I think that's important.
So it's not just necessarily budget, but they can talk about initiatives and things like that. So
Scott, with a $500,000 deficit, are we asking the department heads to come up with a contingency budget?
Well, this group would have to make the cuts.
Why?
The input from the department.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I guess that would be one. In the past, when we've asked them to come in, it's like, here are questions we asked. Well, we're proposing there's a $500,000 issue. You should be prepared to answer the question. We need a 3% cut from your budget. Where's it coming from? And how is that going to impact the citizens?
The reality is, if we have to cut a couple $100,000 from the town side, similar with Norris, they've been cut to the bone. We've been cut to the bone. If you look at we have 2 part-timers in assessors. We have 1 person in health. We have 1 person in building. We have 1.5 in town administrator. We have 1.25 in town clerk. We have 1 full-time and half grant-funded in COA. We have 5. We have 1 full-timer in library, 4 part-timers, and that's probably even going to be 4 at this point with Johanna retiring. Treasurers, we have.
Didn't she just take over?
3 years.
A couple years ago. So I mean, then treasurers, we have 3 people, county 1.5, and veterans we have part-timer. So cutting $100 from Lucy's budget and for her office supplies isn't going to.
What would it look like if we went to a 3-day work week? That eliminates all benefits. No full-time employees.
Then you wouldn't get your health inspections, you wouldn't get your building inspections done.
We're already at a
You wouldn't have any employees.
I think
that's
realistically, you got to look at
what
the core services are, and there's going to be different levels. There's going to be the external social services. There's going to be the the services to the residents, and there's going to be the core public safety, fire, police, and basic finance administration, those types of things.
I think the challenges of the cuts are pretty clear, but I think we need to tell that story well in advance.
We're going to have salary line for a hired treasurer, appointed treasurer. Okay. We had carried a lot of wage lines for highway, unfilled positions, with the hope that lightning would strike and somewhere during the year those would be filled. Not being able to fill them, of course, we went back to get that wage money and those benefits money. I don't recall exactly cannibalizing the EMT thing. I think it played out incrementally.
I think we just didn't have a problem. They held off a little bit to figure out how they were going to handle it with not necessarily staffing, but the process. And then a qualified candidate came forward internally, and Chief Fasoli put that person forward, and they got hired. It's the other if there is one, another internal candidate hasn't come forward. So trying to get an outside candidate to come in when they're looking at the town's deliberate actions of failure on overrides shows why am I going to leave this town to come work for this town when this is how they treat the facilities that I have to work in.
Right. Mm-hmm. And we should own up to the fact that we don't have to, but the reason is, and our commitment is whatever we come up with. Good. All right. I'm not sure I got an assignment, but.
So it's just a matter of, I think I would recommend meeting with the departments, talking about it, and talking about potential cuts and where could they cut. There's not a lot of meat on the bone left to cut in the reality of the situation.
Do you want participation with the department heads from the finance committee or the select board? Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be the joint meetings.
Yeah.
The question is,
Like last.
when can we have all the material to us to digest prior to going into a meeting?
I mean, I can sit down, I already sat down with all the departments to get, most of it's very similar to last year. There's not a lot of changes in the budget. So I can send you what, my budget draft right now that I have and send it to everyone. That reflects a basic level funded. Now, again, with the if there is going to be an override, I think there is some considerations we need to look at as well. So it shouldn't be just, things that will increase operational a little bit.
Yeah. I haven't looked at Bradley's last report that came out, I think, earlier this week or last week, but does he have the current budget numbers in there yet? Where we can see, okay, we were budgeted to collect $15 million and we're more than halfway through the year, but we've only collected $5 million.
So is that in the next week or two? So that's when I'll be
That'll be
updating the revenue. So the year-to-date half, the 6 month.
Because if I'm looking at the budget request for next year, I want to see what they got this year, what they've already spent. Is it on par, behind schedule, ahead of schedule on certain things? And then that makes for more.
Oh, the expenditures, that's all up to date.
The expenditures are, yes, but I don't believe the budget number's sitting there. So you can see that, hey,
Should be at 60%, like
Correct.
we're in, right, okay.
Yeah.
No, I think it is.
Is it there? All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to understand what we're trying to do. Are we going to budget to no override, or are we going to budget to a number that would require an override? Because I think our charge is probably to do both. Not just say, oh, we got a problem, we can't fix it.
I think with working with the schools, we need to come up with an idea of what a non-override budget is going to be and where those cuts are going to be. And I think we have to agree what a reasonable override budget number for an override could be that the voters would approve and kind of work backwards on that. Is it 500,000? Is it 2.5 million? Is it 1.5? And assuming also including capital in that. So
do we want to look for the public meetings with department heads to happen the second half of February? Because by that time, the initial number from Hampshire Regional will be out. And if I remember right, whatever that number is, it can't go higher. Right.
When does the states come out? The end of January?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the better idea we can have on Hampshire Regional's number.
I mean, that's the biggest unknown right now, even more than health insurance. If it's the 10 or 15%, that's going to be killer.
Well, right, and they're currently planning on 15%, hoping it's not that high.
Well,
I know. But Dawn's got to prepare her budgets too. I mean, so she's got to get a number in there.
I mean, but that's everything is at that point. And I mean, it'd be great if all the other towns are in a similar situation as we are. We're looking at, we have a little bit of control over Norris working with the school committee on getting some things. We don't have as much control over the regional.
Correct.
But are they put on notice that money's very, very tight and you need to be?
Oh, absolutely.
I think that the meetings that I've been at, I think the 5 towns have, at least the select boards and finance committees have said that.
Yeah.
We'll see what comes out of it. So.
I mean, there is a.
Are we done?
I gotta go first.
Oh.
Do you guys have a question you need to take up?
Well, we have minutes.
We'll do that in our February meeting though.
I'd like them done so I can post them.
Do we have to vote on a recommendation for the one article for the special town meeting?
Do we?
On January 10th?
Yeah, we should
Otherwise, we're gonna have to,
meet again.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know what it is.
Scott, do you have?
Do you have a question, Lou?
Yeah.
Good thing is it's a single question.
Scott, while you're bringing it up, maybe you can answer one question because I want to make sure I understood correctly. Did we have borrowings tracked as overrides that were not overrides? They were just straight borrowing? Or was it the reverse?
It's not a straightforward question.
It's fair.
So, yes and no. So, when I do the budget and calculate the levy limit, we look at what the debt exclusions are. So some of them weren't properly recorded or input all the way. So we've since went back and looked at all the,
With the state or in our tracking of the budget?
with the state.
With the state. So they were actual overrides, but were not submitted, so we weren't getting the additional levy?
Some of it, yeah. So 3 out of the, originally 6, 3 out of the 5 were recorded and then 2 weren't.
Which is part of what's causing this to happen, right?
A little bit, yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about, the cherry sheets, free cash, all that stuff is essentially wrap all that stuff together. DLS says you have to cut X amount to level it off. That's the end result.
Thank you.
So does somebody want to make a motion? Support?
I have no idea what this is all about.
The state is making us reduce the FY26 budget so that we can have a balanced budget because of revenue shortfalls.
By how much?
So in November, so after the assessors get all the reevaluations done, they send the question up to the select board whether or not they want to do the dual tax rate. That's voted on by the select board. So obviously the select board does the single tax rate. From that point in early December, what Dave, our assessor, does is take all that information and he submit it to the DOR to confirm what our evaluations are. Once we have that, that's then shipped off to Bradley, and Bradley says, okay, these are evaluations, this is our new growth, this is all, everything is right here. These are our cherry sheets money that we're getting in, things like that. Sorry. And they submit everything into the DLS, the portal, to make sure everything's, balancing out. So one of the things, we were kind of red flagged because last year we included all the offsets, like the Norris offsets. So we included the Norris offsets of 750. So they looked at it and said, okay, well, why is your budget 1.5 million over it? So they looked at it, we explained it to them that we use offsets. They recommended we do it a little bit differently this year, which we were going to do, but there's a separate line item for like offsets and things like that. So then they looked at things like our revenue, our free cash, things like that, and they looked at our revenue. For example, our new growth is significantly down. So over the last couple of years, it's been over $200,000. Last year, we budgeted 180 as an estimated revenue growth. With the override last year in the Norris school, it's finding that middle ground. And with the override failing, we knew it was going to be a razor thin thing. Because if we overestimate, we're in this situation. But if we underestimate and we don't have the revenues, then we're getting another Norris position cut or something else. So it came in closer to $100,000. So we were expecting it to at least last one more year over $200,000. The other thing with our overlay, which is the amount of money that we're not going to be collecting, the 5-year average was $97,000, and we're going to be closer to $130,000 this year, and then next year it's going to be $150,000. So things like that, they're coming in to saying you got to reduce your spending to fit underneath that. They did try to work with us, so things like our cannabis revenue, that's going to probably be closer to like $175,000, but that was, there's always a little bit of wiggle room because you don't have all the numbers when you submit your budget, state aid, things like that. So they do allow a little bit of wiggle room, but it was just way too much. So they looked at like the cannabis, like, okay, it's probably going to be more, but $25,000 is not going to offset that amount.
So they asked us to reduce the budget by
So each of those lines,
Yeah, 195.
is there a total on the next page?
That's what I was going to ask.
195,000.
So,
But is it on there?
Where are you looking?
No, it's not on there.
so what would the motion be? The motion would be to recommend, that the finance committee recommends to put forth the warrant to the town meeting?
Recommends approval.
Approval.
Or to either vote to approve or vote to deny this.
Okay.
Reduce the 26 budget by these particular amounts on these categories.
Yeah.
So I'll put a motion to approve the $195,000 warrant.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
We should make the motion to recommend.
To recommend.
Because we're not approving it.
Correct.
We need to carry forward our recommendation.
Recommend question 1 as stated, if you don't want to read word for word, as stated on the document.
Okay, I'll second that, but I have a question. Could we put the totals up there? Because I think that would, I'm trying to do it in my head, but I think it would be nice to have them.
Yeah, I can. I'll amend.
Yeah, just
for the handout,
one number.
It's this column right here.
Yeah.
I'll put it down here.
Do you need to note the
yeah.
motion?
So the
That
motion
was
is
Becky and Reggie.
to make the recommendation for the $195,000
To support.
To support-
To support.
to support the article for, you wanted the dollar amount in though, for,
Do you know the exact totals?
It's 195.
195.
for 195.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And you second?
I did second.
All in favor?
Aye? Okay.
That was painful.
Thank you. I think we have seen
Are you guys
overtime.
ready to adjourn?
We are ready to adjourn. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second it?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's the 8:20.
Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Stephen, seconded by Al. All in favor? Aye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.